Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show, your source for market intel, forecasts, and strategies. Hello, I'm Michael Bull. Thank you for being with us today. Our show today is brought to you by Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Check it out. It is the ultimate and commercial agent training, cloud access videos. People rave about them around the country and in some other countries. So learn more at commercialagentsuccess.com. Well, today we're going to talk about a subject that seems to be interesting to a lot of people. It's multifamily. And one of the multifamily sectors that runs a little differently, it operates a little differently. In some cases, it's even priced a little differently, rented certainly differently, and that is student housing. Please welcome my guest. It's Brent Little. He's president and CEO of Fountain Residential. Brent, good to see you again, sir.
Hey, Michael, thank you for having me on again. Great to see you.
I appreciate it. And, you guys tell the audience a little bit, Brent, about how long you guys been in the student housing world and kind of how many properties you have around and where.
Sure. I've been in student housing solely for almost 25 years now. So I've grown into the gray hair. But ever since really it's been a sector back in the 80s and 90s. And we started Fountain Residential Partners up in about 2010. So since then, we've been deploying capital and building off-campus student housing assets across the country. It's a national platform. I've built over 50 projects across the United States, about $3 billion worth of product. And most recently, we have finished projects at Clemson, at LSU. We're just finishing up one in Cincinnati. We're under construction with our second project in Clemson, South Carolina. And then we have a robust pipeline of projects coming up in University of Central Florida, Kansas, Pittsburgh, Long Beach, California, and also JMU, James Madison University, is kind of the next deals on the docket.
That's awesome. So you guys are definitely staying busy, and it's interesting. You're developing these new projects and have these underway, but in some cases, there's not a lot of new starts happening, right?
Right. We've seen new starts have dropped about 30% over the last few years. And that's a factor of having to do with the cost structure, just harder to find good sites. Of course, you'd love to be right next to campus. Sometimes that's prohibitive, but you certainly want to be within kind of a 2 to 3 mile radius, depending on what type of product you're building, whether it's high density, high rise, cottage product, or kind of conventional garden product. But that being said, the opportunities have become harder to come by within a 2 to 3 mile radius of major universities. And by major universities, we're talking about tier one universities that are 25,000 or 30 full-time undergrad students or more. And just zoning is more difficult, permitting is more difficult, cost structures are up. So all of these things have led to a reduction of about 30%. We used to call it 50,000 beds or so, and now we're more around 40,000 beds or so being produced every year in primary markets.
So is that the right number, or is that potentially not enough?
Well, if rents and occupancy are telling you anything, it's saying that there's demand for more. The latest data that we have from the last month is that the average rate per bed, and we track per bed or per bedroom as opposed to per unit, because students and their parents are leasing a bedroom or a suite within, if there's a 4-bedroom unit with 4 baths, that has 4 leases assigned to it for 4 different students, and mom and pop get to pay just one monthly rent. But the rent for that now has achieved over $1,000 per month on average. And on average, that includes product that was built back in the 80s and 90s as well. That's tracking 1.5 million beds of product across the United States. And rents are currently up over 4% over last year. So rates are up, and we're pre-leased for this fall. With 4 months to go, we're pre-leased at 68%. So you're considered full at about 95% or more. So we have less than 30% of leasing to go with 4 months left. So I think everybody anticipates in our marketplace that we're going to be 95% or better this year.
That's excellent. So obviously the management on these properties is different than your regular, multifamily. How about cap rates? Are they a little different than a similar style multifamily class?
Cap rates will vary, and especially since interest rates have gone up significantly. It got down to where probably 2 years ago, there was a very, very negligible difference between a Class A student housing project and a similar conventional or luxury multifamily project within the same market. Those spreads have widened a little bit. They're probably more like 50 basis points between the conventional multifamily and the student housing now. And I think that's part of what is interesting investors as they see that cap rate spread is subject to compression again in the future.
So which way is it 50 basis points higher or lower on the student housing?
It's 50 basis points higher on
Higher.
exit on this
Okay.
on the student housing. So, if you're in a marketplace that's saying call it a five exit cap for a conventional multifamily project, it's probably closer to a five and a half
Hmm.
currently for a student project. But
Yeah.
that varies depending upon obviously market. California much different from Missouri. Uh, and whether it's a very urban location, high density location in urban, or whether it's more, if you're 3 miles away from campus, from that same university, it might be a little bit higher.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Brent, tell us about the amenities and how these projects look today. Most of us probably haven't been in a college dorm lately or
The
apartment.
the off-campus student housing now continues to evolve. As we talked last time we were speaking a couple of years ago, we're ending the end of what we called our amenities arms race. We had lazy rivers and virtual golf simulators and rock climbing walls, and you named it. It looked like you're walking in the main event as opposed to or Chuck E. Cheese or something as opposed to a student housing project. But now I think the focus is more on wellness. This second project that we're building in Clemson, South Carolina, we have a sauna, a cold plunge, Pilates reformers, mirrors in the exercise rooms where you can take classes from on cardio or yoga or whatever you choose there in the yoga room. Tanning, of course, the games, pool table, pickleball, the swimming pool, barbecues, cabanas out by the pool. It's truly, we always called it a resort style pool. I get most of my ideas for pools from resorts in Europe or down in Mexico or the Caribbean or something now, and they're not to be outdone. Dog parks, cardio and strength, of course, still very important. Study rooms are still very important. We've done a lot more study rooms in different types of study rooms. We're now doing study rooms that can be converted for Instagram and influencers and content creators
Hmm.
because these are 18 to 22-year-old demographic. That's how they're making their money sometimes is buying being Instagram influencers and product influencers, and uh, and we like that because they can pay the rent that way. So.
I like it. Well, with all those fun things to do and all the wellness activities and things, how do they have time to use the study room?
Well, and it's great to be living with three of your friends in a four-bedroom or a two-bedroom, or we're now building five and six bedrooms as well in some instances. But sometimes you just need to get away, and that's why we provide the study rooms. We'll have a lot of individual study rooms if you just need to read a book or work on something yourself. We also have many group study rooms of different types where you can work on projects together. And then, depending upon the marketplace, we've done art rooms
Mm.
and where the artistic community and is very popular. We've done music rooms. with soundproofing throughout them and larger rooms where you can practice with other people on your instruments. And then one interesting amenity, we did a project in Bozeman, Montana. It was the first and only one I've ever done that had ski storage and ski waxing for when you went skiing in Bozeman. So it's mark to market on the amenities.
That is awesome. I mean, it sounds like just a wonderful place to be and live, period.
That's the goal.
Well, talk to us about enrollment at these colleges, Brent, because I suppose that that has a bearing on performance of these projects, right?
Sure, and I think to be topical, we're seeing a lot of information right now about what's happening with the administration and international students. But you really have to parse that data, and most of the reports are it's a very minimal impact today on the number of international students that are affected. Within the last week, I read one, and it was 130 students that were affected. Another one was 300 students, and that was on a national basis that they projected. So I'm not saying that it's not happening, but it's with the number of international students that come into the United States on the visa programs, uh, they're still coming. The United States, we have had 3 or 4 projects now that were funded through Chinese investors, and they often tell us that the United States and the educational system here in the United States for colleges and universities is still unparalleled anywhere else in the world. And so, wherever you live in the world, you want your children to come and get an education here in the United States. And oftentimes, they may or may not leave. They may or may not go back to their home countries and where their parents are. And we're seeing more and more that the parents are now coming to live in the United States and following their students here to live.
Hmm.
So it is an impact, but it's we're not seeing it in measurable quantities on leasing or an impact on our businesses. Um, in fact, we still have master leases with groups that target international students specifically. As regards other enrollment, the 18 to 22-year-old cohort is declining slightly over the next few years. But what we're seeing is that universities are continuing to have greater number of applications every year, and they're continuing to have greater enrollments every year by and large. We're still seeing an average enrollment growth, even with that declining age cohort of about 2% per year. So the universities, this is, I'm going to use my hand, this is the throttle they have on enrollment. And so if they see one portion of the cohort that's declining, they can always accept a higher ratio. The University of Texas, for example, is accepting probably, and Austin is accepting probably between 3 and 5% of those that apply.
Hmm.
So it's pretty easy if you lose one cohort, like international students, if you lose a few hundred or even a few thousand, to let now from 5% to 6% of students in that have applied as opposed to 4 to 5. So we're still seeing enrollments increasing and not having significant impacts from either the demographics or the international student situation.
Yeah. Well, you guys at Fountain Residential are obviously an industry leader around the country in the student housing space. You were just at the Interstate Interface Student Housing Conference. Our friends over there, at Interface, do a great job with their conferences. By the way, if you're looking for conferences, check them out. I was wondering, what were some of the themes or trends or excitement or worries you're hearing? And if you don't mind starting out with, was there any concern about federal funding being lost by some of the universities?
We did have some panels that had on campus representatives from the universities,
Mhm.
and they did not seem concerned about a lack of federal funding. Um, at all. In fact, it wasn't even mentioned by any of, saw probably about three sessions that had on-campus representatives, and
Mhm.
none of them stated any issues with funding.
Yeah.
So that's good news. As far as news in the sector, we have for the first time what has been coined mega deals.
Mhm.
We're seeing some of our friendly competitors in the business start to build projects that are 1,000, in some instances 1,800, and over 2,000 beds in one development. So the size and scale of these deals, some of them are even as large as, call it, $300 million in a single asset, and no one has seen those before. They're under construction now, and I think a real question for the marketplace is who is going to buy these projects, who has the ability and capacity to buy these projects and finance these projects. And there was even some talk from some of the brokers on the sales side of having to condo a massive project of this scale out and sell it to multiple buyers. Now, the positive aspect of that was some of the brokers were saying, look, now we only need 5 deals to do a $1.5 billion transaction as opposed to 20 or 30 projects. So there's that positive aspect of it, but there's a real question as to what the appetite is for. If you built it for 300 million, you're going to want to sell it for 400 million, and what the appetite is from any singular investors to own a $400 million asset at a single university in a single city.
Yeah, that's a good question, and also the condo aspect of it seems like that can be a mess. I know I've seen the condo to retail kind of be a mess, and
Mhm.
that could get confusing. And when you're talking 2,000 beds, the fall move-in must be spectacular to watch.
Yeah, I put 3 kids through college. I can't imagine what that's going to be like. And we've already seen that on the larger scale projects that are 1,000 beds or less. Right, you already have to take that and divide it up. Whether it's a high-rise building, you move in by floor over several days, or if it's a traditional garden product or cottage product, maybe you spread that out over several days by section of the property.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's that's a I always say the move in and move out is like the cruise ship turnaround in Fort Lauderdale, and trying to move 2,000 students in and out on one asset. That's going to be prodigious. Now, of course, it helps that we're fully furnished. Everything comes fully furnished, full size washer dryers, 65-inch flat screen TVs. All you're bringing is your laptop and your clothing, but still, that's a lot of moving.
Yeah, it's a lot of logistics. So what else, Brent, might the country listening and watching want to be aware of? Anything else come out of the conference that you found interesting?
Right. So we're seeing debt become more readily available. We're hearing now about term sheets coming in on new development deals that are seeing double-digit term sheets. So that's not something that we've heard for a while. So
Mhm.
that's great to hear. And we've heard that LP equity is still a little tight, and that's not having anything to do with the sector or the investment opportunity. It just has to do with what's happening in financial markets right now.
Mhm.
Financial investors, and whether they're high net worth individuals, family offices, or major funds, REITs, whatever it may be, they're seeking some level of stability. And right now, the financial markets are not showing any stability. We're seeing interest rates and yields and the like just whipsaw back and forth on an almost literally a daily basis, and sometimes twice in a day. So it's hard for anyone to feel safety and security in placing their funds today. We're hoping for some stability to come forth in financial markets in the near term, and then we'll be back to work. But right now, by the way, we did our first EB5 deal. Our second project in Clemson, South Carolina, is an EB5 deal.
Mhm.
And for those who aren't familiar, that's using the visa program for people coming into the country, where they buy a visa, and that those capital funds are invested in a project that's in a rural location, which our second project in serving Clemson University classifies as that. So it was a great opportunity for us, and a great opportunity for that equity provider. So we continue to be small, nimble, and creative. We've done several projects through crowdfunding, and for our smaller projects, we can still do those with kind of club capital, and always looking for investors in those deals. And then for the larger projects, we're looking at those with kind of traditional major fund investors. We're also working on our first, I've done several on the conventional side in prior years, but our first residential to student conversion that would be in Long Beach, California, we've been working on for a couple of years. We look to have our rezoning accomplished this year, and then hope to start construction on that by next year. So that's an opportunity. As you know, there's opportunities with some office buildings that are showing a little bit of extra vacancy,
Mhm.
but are well located. And there are several close to major universities in urban areas that will work for office to residential conversion. So that's something else that's kind of new to the sector.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Considering some of those. So you mentioned rezoning in California from apartments, I mean, I guess to do student housing. I wasn't
Mhm.
aware that there'd be different zoning for apartments versus student housing.
No, that was from office, and that was an
Oh,
office to residential conversion. So
okay,
it
okay.
it did not have underlying. A lot of office buildings sometimes will,
Mhm.
because they're considered a lesser use, but this particular building didn't have underlying zoning, and it's California, so you get to go through the whole process.
That's right. Well, Brent, what did you leave our audience with to think about for student housing moving forward?
I'm still a huge believer in the sector. If you're going to be in real estate, multifamily is one of the best performing, and within multifamily real estate, student housing is one of the best performing assets within the multifamily sector. So we're very excited about the opportunities we see up ahead. Enrollment figures are good, and I hope this will be a great year for us. And maybe we can get back up to 60 or 70,000 beds a year in the near term.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, Brent, thanks for being on the show with us.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
All right. And thanks for doing business with us in the past. We appreciate that too.
You bet.
All right. And thank you for joining us around the country. Please let us know what you think. If you appreciate the show, I'd ask you a favor. Can you forward the show to someone? Can you post it on social media? Can you like it? Can you subscribe? We do appreciate the feedback and the connection. Until next week, be sure that you always lead, learn, and laugh, and join us for America's Commercial Real Estate Show. America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty, commercial real estate sales, leasing, and advisory services. Visit bullrealty.com or reach out to me directly. My email is michael@bullrealty.com. By ShareFile, designed with real estate and other highly regulated industries in mind, ShareFile offers secure digital solution to simplify workflow and improve collaboration. Visit sharefile.com. By Commercial Agent Success Strategies, 21 cloud-accessed agent training videos. Learn more at commercialagentsuccess.com. You're invited to subscribe to the show wherever you listen or watch the show. You're also invited to subscribe to a weekly email announcing the show topic and guests at creshow.com. Thank you for watching, listening, and sharing America's Commercial Real Estate Show.